Welcome back to your small group for week 2. For those of you who have never been part of a small group, let me just say how awesome it is that you've taken this step. I believe you're going to meet some great people, learn from one another, and be able to encourage one another as we continue to take our next steps in following Jesus. As a church, we're talking about who we are and what we think God has for us now and in the future here in this community. It may feel a little bit like a weird time to have jumped into a group, but I want to suggest that it may actually be the very best time. Last week, we spent time talking about a long-range vision or a picture of the future that we're moving towards. Specifically, in the year 2027, when Christ Church is 20 years old, what might we be able to accomplish with God's help? We wrote it down in a statement that says, by 2027, we will leverage our passion for Camden to flip the spiritual climate of our community by equipping our people to live on mission where they live, work, study, and play so that each person influences 5 others in their circle of reach. Now that's a mouthful, and we're not going to spend time on the numbers or specifics of that today. I want you to better grasp the mission that is involved. Specifically, the mission of our church is to lead the disconnected and the unfulfilled to find a full life in Jesus. Today, what we want to do is spend our time talking about how we're going to do that, not just as a church, but what is your part as an individual. We're going to say it this way, and we're going to do it this way, that we're going to lead the disconnected and the unfulfilled to find a full life in Jesus by growing in our love for Jesus, for each other, and for Camden. And can I get even more specific by saying in 2021, this year, it's our goal that everyone who's a part of Christ Church just simply takes their next step with Jesus. So in your time today with your group, I hope that when you leave, you're going to be able to determine exactly what your next step should be. Following Jesus is exactly that. It's taking a series of next steps. One of the interesting things I've discovered about Jesus is that he rarely ever offered an invitation to people or any kind of recruiting call for people to join his ranks. There were no rallies or sign-up events. Yes, he did miracles, told stories, did a lot of teaching, and showed people the best way to live. But there were just a handful of occasions when he would ask people to join him and officially be recognized. And that was always a very simple process that came down to 2 words: follow me. As a matter of fact, Jesus never asked anyone to become a Christian. It was always to follow him. And following Jesus happens when we take a series of next steps. We're going to read together from the book of Luke, chapter 5, which is an account of when Jesus begins to call some of his first disciples. And as we read it, you're going to want to note and then discuss a series of steps that these people take to move from being bystanders to what I would call a full-blown follower. It says this way, Luke chapter 5. As the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear God's word, he was standing by Lake Gennesaret. He saw 2 boats at the edge of the lake. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, which belonged to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the land. Then he sat down and was teaching the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." "Master," Simon replied, "we've worked hard all night long and caught nothing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets." When they did this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets began to tear. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, because I'm a sinful man, Lord." For he and all those with him were amazed at the catch of fish they had taken, and so were James and John, Zebedee's sons, who were Simon's partners. "Don't be afraid," Jesus told Simon. "From now on, you will be catching people." And then they brought the boats to land, left everything, and followed him. Now, I want us to use this story as a guide for following Jesus and the next steps we can take. I don't know if you've ever been standing in front of a giant map trying to figure out where you are and where you need to go. Usually there's a big sign or a marker on it somewhere that says, "You are here." If you've ever been to the Mall of America, you know how confusing it can be, and you're thinking, how do I get to Serial Adventure? I was in the Atlanta airport a few weeks back around Thanksgiving, looking at the map thinking there's only one Bojangles and it's in Concourse T, but I'm in Concourse B. How do I get there? Or you've been to Animal Kingdom before and you realize that you're in Dino Land and you need to get to Africa. Once you can determine where you are, you can see the path you need to take to be where you want to be. In a very similar way, you need to be clear on how you become the person God has planned, regardless of where you are in your relationship with Him. You have to first find the mark that says you are here, and then you can see where it is that you need to go and how to get there. Based on this example we find in Luke 5, the challenge for you is to decide where you currently are and what you need to do next in order to follow Jesus. It's important to understand a couple of things. One, that everyone's next step is not the same step. We're all at different places, and no one's looked down on for where they currently are. The most important thing is not where you are, but are you moving to what is next? Which means a second thing, that your next step is actually possible. It's not always a 0 to 70 in an instant. Some of us are interested in Jesus and following Jesus, but we sometimes hear about unrealistic expectations, and we're not sure we can do that. Not very many people can go from hearing about Jesus to moving to Africa as a missionary in one step. But can you take one? That's our goal as a church this year. Everyone takes at least one step in a relationship with Jesus. And when you do that, guess what? You are a follower of Jesus, a disciple. And together we're beginning to accomplish the mission to lead other people to experience a full life in Jesus.